Thank you for watching this program brought to you by the Orthochat. Before we begin, please take some time to hear some information about our sponsors. Here at the Orthochat, we are proud to be an official partner of Lore Coffee Roasters, an Orthodox Christian coffee company out of Bonners Ferry, Idaho. If you visit their website at www.lorecoffeeroasters.com/theorthochat, we will receive 15% of your order. It's an Orthodox Christian coffee company that is organically sourcing a great variety of flavors. I drink it myself and I love coffee. And as a coffee connoisseur, I can tell you it's top notch. So visit their website at www.lorecoffeeroasters.com/theorthochat for 15% of your purchase to be contributed to our project. Here at the Orthochat, we are proud to be a partner of Scriptorum Press, a Christian publishing company that puts out great books about the lives of the saints, their teachings, and a variety of other Christian topics. My personal favorite in their collection is The Life of St. Dionysius the Areopagite. If you visit their website at scriptorumpress.ca and use the code ORTHOCHAT at checkout, you will receive 15% off of your order, and I encourage you all to check it out to pick up some great patristic and theological teachings, as well as hagiographies to spiritually enrich you and help support the Orthochat and another great Christian company. We here at the Orthochat are proud to be a partner of the St. Maximos Society, run by Archimandrite Maximus Waymar and his collective. They put out great videos talking about the spiritual life, theology, and a variety of other Orthodox Christian topics. If you check out the link below this video, you could find their YouTube channel, and it's currently a growing project, and I implore you all to visit their site so that you can help support them and a great cause for the Orthodox Christian Church. Here at the Orthochat, we support the special needs, differently abled, and their families. That's why we are a proud sponsor of TP Splash Guard, a urinary assistance device for those who need some help during bathroom time. All you need to do is remove the holding seal with instructions on the front, open it up, remove the adhesive to attach it to the front of the toilet, and now it's easier in the restroom. If you would like to learn more about this revolutionary device for special needs and differently abled people, visit tpsplash.com. That's tpsplash.com to learn more and inquire about making a purchase. All discussions and statements that are applied in the Orthochat Theology and its episodes are supervised and or approved by the contributing parties as ranking clergy and or tonsured monastics in the Holy Eastern Orthodox Church, but may not be the direct views of the respective jurisdictions or associated hierarchs, and all conjecture or theoretical teachings, as well as any theology knowingly not taught by the catechisms and dogma of the Orthodox Church, will be identified as such.
You are listening to the Orthochat Theology, brought to you by Yanni Katsadas and associated partners.
Της καλήνου το κλαίος και θείων εφορών και το παλαιοσίον το ισοστάσιον εφημίσομεν πιστή Σαββατών οσίων ότι δε δόξαστε λαμπρός ως θεράπων του Χριστού θαυμάτων τη ενεργία και διανέμει τη σπάση παρά Θεού χάριν και ελεόν.
Greetings in Christ, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to the Orthochat Theology, Season 1, Episode 6 of the Holy Angels with Archimandrite Maximus Waymar and Father Justinian Burnett. Everyone, how are we doing?
Very well. Christ is risen.
Truly risen.
Alithos o Kyrios.
Christos anesti.
Alithos anesti. Christos anesti, everyone.
Christos voskresia.
I don't know the response to that.
Voskidnio voskresia.
Good to see you both. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time. We went through all of Lent and Holy Week and Pascha without doing one of these, but we are back in action. And Father Justinian's parish documentary is out, so if you're watching this, go check this out after you're done listening to us. It went really well, and I'm happy that it went as well as it did. Before we get started, everyone, what's new? Good things?
Yeah, very good things. During the course of Lent, we doubled the size of our physical little chapel in the building. We knocked out the back wall, and we created a new space, which was just in time for Pascha. In the course of, we made, Saturday, we made 5 new catechumens, and we baptized 2 men. And so since I've been down here, it's like I've baptized like 20 people, which is good. And so we're growing, and I think everything is going very, very well. We had a very good Lent. We had a very nice Pascha. It's been a blessing. I have nothing to complain about.
Looks so Theo. Looks so Theo.
Father Justinian?
Yeah, we're doing well. I mean, they Lent is always difficult, especially Holy Week, but we got through it, and Pascha was wonderful and glorious like it always is, and baptized a family of five during Holy
Glory to
Week.
God.
Got a couple of new godchildren out of the mix, and so it was a successful Lenten Pascha, I think.
Glory to God. Yeah, this was one of the nicer ones for me because it's smaller here, but you're sort of able to focus. When it's just a small group, it's a lot easier to focus. And because I don't have a lot of help, I had to read a lot of the stuff, which was nice. So it sort of brought me back to my roots.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And God willingly, things continue to go well. Getting straight into it, last time we were talking about angelic free will and sin and angels in the New Testament, and now we are talking about the archangels and their roles. I want everybody to excuse me for being in Alaska right now. I got kidnapped and now I'm up here recording, but that's what I tell people when I want to sound interesting. The reality of the situation is the house is a bit of a disaster right now because we're doing a little bit of reconstruction, renovation, all that fun stuff. So it'll appear like this for the foreseeable future, which luckily my foresight is terrible. So anyway. Um, on the archangels and their roles, I guess we would start with the most well-known ones and going in order. Mikhail, the Taxiarchis. What do we know about him? What is his job? What is he? I guess for all intents and purposes.
Well, so forgive me for butting in, Father, but the Archangel Michael is probably he and Gabriel are the two that we probably know the most about because they're the most sort of involved in the scriptures and in the teaching of sort of specifically about the church. So, of course, the Archangel Michael, his name means, who is like God or he who is like God. He's the biggest and the best of them. He's the one to whom the most of the mind and the will of the Trinity is revealed directly, and of course, he's responsible for communicating that down the hierarchy. I think, as we've talked several times before. But in particular, he is the patron saint of the people of God. He is the protector of the Israel of God. And so in the Old Testament, we see many times that he interacts, with Joshua, the son of Nun, especially on the eve of the Battle of Jericho. He's responsible for turning back of the Assyrians when they besieged, Israel or Jerusalem during the days of Hezekiah. The fathers say that he was the pillar of cloud that led the Israelites, in the wilderness by day, and the pillar of fire that led them by night. So he's sort of all over the scriptures, and when we talk about like his role, I mean that's his he has sort of a lot of overlapping roles. He is the Archistrategos. He's like the chief commander, is the commander in chief of all the angels, but
The field
he's
marshal.
also, I'm sorry, what?
The field marshal.
The field marshal. Yep.
Yep.
And he's also like I said, the patron protector of the people of God, but he also has, a lot of other functions too. I mean, we commonly in iconography, he's depicted sometimes like trampling Satan underfoot in the sort of the form of a dragon. Um, the He's also sometimes holding the green date tree palms in his right hand, sometimes a spear and a white banner, or sometimes a fiery sword. He's this all this sort of signifies like his those sort of overlapping roles. And then of course he's got numerous miracles in the sort of New Testament era too. I mean the famous one that we celebrate liturgically, the salvation of the church at Koni, um, which is I think in September, right? Forgive me,
I think so, yeah.
yeah,
That
it's his
sounds
big
right.
feast day in September.
Yeah, Michael is the most visible of the angels in our history. He is the leader, and he also, again, even his name, who is like God, is a little aggressive and provocative. He's the warrior, and in the early days, of course, Um, they had to resist the fact that he was so powerful and overwhelming and glorious that some people were tempted to worship him as a god himself. And he makes it very clear that he's not. His power, like all the angels' power, they are not individual sources. They're the power of God flows through them, just like it does us. So they're manifestations of the uncreated energies of God in created form, obviously.
I remember I remember hearing something about the way that we depict the Archangel Michael in iconography is purposefully synonymous to the way that we depict Christ. Would it be accurate to say that he's kind of like a semi like theophania, like he's the like he who is like God, who is like God, not as like a question as it's been kind of mistranslated, but like he who is the closest thing to God out of the celestial bodies. Like would that be like a fair comparison in a way?
I've never thought of it in those terms, but that is a very interesting question. I always saw it as a who is like God, who dares oppose his will. But Father Justinian, what do you think? You know more about this than I do. Is that a reasonable interpretation of that
I
of
think
that?
so. Yeah, I think the implication is that it is like a statement, like that, who the
He who is
he
like God.
who is like God. I mean, he is in a lot of ways like God. I mean, he is like the apex maybe of created beings. I mean, obviously, we talk about the Theotokos, in the ascending, but like in sort of like the original sort of
Who's
created
greater and
order.
under than the angels, and
Yeah,
beyond compare more glorious,
right.
than
Right.
so
Then of
that
course it's the destiny of human beings to raise up above them, but sort of in the sort of top-down hierarchy, he is the top dog of created beings. So like
yeah.
and stands the closest to God and is the one that to whom God like reveals the most about himself and about his plans and his will toward us and entrusts, the care of his people too. I mean yeah, I think it's fair to say. And I think too that like, Michael we see him, both directly and indirectly, sort of putting into their place like the fallen angels, all the way up to and including, Satan. So I mean, he clearly has like, a considerable, power over, the other angelic beings. And of course and like you said, Father, I mean, like that's very true. I mean, like we have so many times where he appears to people and they, they're tempted to fall down and worship him because he's so glorious. And I think, if we this sort of reminds me too about it's that letter of Saint Dionysius that is not preserved, but we have a little bit of fragment of it that's in the Synaxarion reading for his feast day that talks about like the first time that he met the Mother of God, and it says
Right,
that
right,
if Saint Paul had not been with him and told him who she was, the grace coming off of her, he would have thought she was a divinity.
right, right.
You
And
know,
he wasn't entirely wrong.
he wasn't entirely wrong.
She's a god by grace, just as Michael and the archangels and all the angels. They are divinities in that sense. They're just not the source of divinity. They're
Right.
manifestations, their presence of divinity. I think that's one of the great misunderstandings of I would say the modern era, but of all times. That I was talking with a friend of mine, and he was saying that he had been Christian and now he's something else, but he said, well, we worship God, but we don't become God. I said, we do. We don't become the God, but we become all things that He is, save we are created. And even Saint Gregory Palamas says we share in His uncreatedness. So the angels now, of course, have our manifestations of this divinity in ways that are, as we heard, they're overwhelming and incalculable. But the angels also beckon us to also share in Christ's divinity, in the divinity of God, in a way that's why we say the Theotokos, she's the queen of heaven, not Michael, not the archangel. Because the human being, the purified, divinized human being, transcends all levels of reality.
It's
Yeah.
you mentioned something and I kind of made this statement extracted from a talk that me and Father Justinian had where I started telling people just as the uncreated became created, the created will become uncreated by the by the salvation of creation. It's like I kind of tried to make that connection with people because God, the uncreated God became man so that man can become like God, and I kind of like addendum to that so they understand it's not exactly like one for one literal, but I don't think like Western conception has
Well,
like an idea of lowercase g, you know?
I think Saint Maximus the Confessor actually says that in the Ambigua, because he has the statement where he says that that without losing any of our creaturely attributions, we will become uncreated. Now,
Right.
how, that's a knot for God to unravel, how we can be created and become uncreated without losing our createdness. But Saint Maximus says it, so we gotta,
Yeah, and I think it means we become uncreated by participating in the uncreated,
right.
right? And this is why in all these things we talk about, and everything wherever we're doing theology, it's a common notion that certain kinds of theology are high and should not be discussed. Two principles that are critical anytime you approach anything holy or anything theological is one, the essence of God is beyond being. It's the source of being. And of course, then the essence and energy's distinction. So anything we can say or think in any way, and without limitation on that statement, is inferior to the essence. So if we become, the 10 times more powerful and glorious than Saint Michael, it's a drop in the bucket compared with God. So I think probably is because people have this very stingy view of God and this stingy view of what He gives. So consequently, they want to protect God, like we're encroaching on His turf. We don't have to worry. God's beyond. His turf is inaccessible.
Yeah, we're not getting close to that.
Never.
So I do want to like kind of shoehorn something in between Michael and Gabriel, which is I talked to Father Justinian about this before.
Be careful, Yanni. They're look behind me. They're both looking
Oh
at us.
yeah, no, and trust me,
Yep.
they'll get me. No, actually, they won't get me. They'll stop protecting me from my own stupidity, and that's even worse.
They never
Um,
give up.
but so I there's something about the Hagia Sophia, that red icon that looks like Christ. It's like a theophania. I like because when people hear Hagia Sophia, they think they're talking about like Saint Sophia the Martyr. But it's actually the church, the big church of Constantinople, and like then any other church subsequently named after that, or most of them anyway, are named after the wisdom of God itself. And we have this icon of this of like this scarlet red angel. I I want you guys to maybe talk a little bit about like what that is, like if it's simply just like a theophania or if it's like something more to it.
Well,
Okay.
if I will jump in here, we have in our tradition this notion. I mean, and you can sort of see this if you look at like patristic commentaries on the Book of Daniel, for example. Like, who was in the furnace with the three holy children? And you have fathers who say that it is the Lord, that the Lord, this sort of as like a theophany of Christ, is protecting them in the furnace. And then, of course, you have other saints, other fathers who say that it's the Archangel Michael in his role as the protector of of the Israel of God, that he's protecting the holy children. And it's both. I mean, I think the way that we were talking about, before about how the angels, the same way that they can sort of manifest, the upper angels can manifest themselves down through the ranks into the lower ranks. That like this this appearance of one who is like unto the Son of Man is what the Bible says is in some way maybe physically actually the Archangel Michael, but he's there in the spirit and power of the second person of the Trinity, the Logos, the Creator, right? And so the same is true. I think if we look at so you're talking about like the Saint Sophia icon, the Wisdom of God icon, which has this like sort of red coloration angelic being. You see that exact same depiction of the Archangel Michael in a lot of depictions of the Apocalypse. It's this red angelic being riding a red horse, sort of announcing the end of the world, bringing things like to the judgment. And so, of course, that's a depiction of the Archangel Michael. So I think that, yeah, there's a sense in which this is the wisdom of God being represented angelically as, in a form of the Archangel Michael. And this is sometimes a little bit can be scandalous to people. It was scandalous, in the era of Andrei Rublev too, who famously depicted the Trinity as, angels. But that's part of our tradition, you know. And that's I think that we have to just sort of that's one of those things that's kind of mysterious as to how that happens. I think we talked about that before when we were talking about like how do the angels manifest themselves as the lower ranks? How does Satan do the same thing, sort of coercively through the ranks of the demons? But it's one of those things that nevertheless I think is a real part of our tradition, and we shouldn't be scandalized by it certainly, but we can't like sort of cover it over and deny it either.
Yes, I agree with that. I think we have to. You were mentioning talking about Hagia Sophia. It's interesting that the feast day of Hagia Sophia traditionally was the feast of mid Pentecost, which is interesting. So obviously, when we're speaking about Sophia in that sense, Hagia Sophia, the Holy Wisdom, is Christ Himself, because He is the wisdom, word, and power of God. But as Father said, God is not stingy. He is able to manifest Himself in whatever form is economically necessary for the salvation of man. So the image of the angels angels as the Trinity is symbolic, but it's real. It's not merely something we come up with. The Trinity manifests itself not in its hidden essence, but in its energetic presence in all kinds of things.
Right.
That makes sense. And going from that to the Archangel Gabriel, I want you guys to tell me what you know about him, but also I think it's important that we talk about the stories in the tradition of our church about his relationship to the Panagia, which I've heard some things about that maybe you guys could enlighten us with.
Okay. Well, of course, Gabriel's name means the strength or power of God. And seems to be his role is to be like directly concerned with like human salvation and the plan of God for human salvation and human deification. So he's always there to announce sort of important things. He goes to announce the interpretation that the prophet Daniel has in Babylon of the coming of Christ and the end of the world. He comes and speaks with of course, we know he's instrumental. If we look at the early chapters of Luke, he's there talking to Zechariah. He's there talking to the Mother of God. He announces these things that have to do with like the working out of the will of God toward the salvation of humanity. And he's often depicted in you talking about his relationship to the Mother of God. In most of his iconography, a lot of his iconography, you see him holding an olive branch in his hand, and the tradition is that the Mother of God, after her dormition and her taking into heaven, her resurrection, taking into heaven, that she took a branch of an olive tree from paradise and gave him as a gift in response to his friendship with her. And
That's
so
such a beautiful story. I love
it is
that
a great story.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
amazing.
that he's like forever sort of like holding this as like a sign that like of his friendship with the Mother of God, you know. And the tradition, of course, is that during the time in which she was raised in the temple, when she was presented to the temple when she was 3 years of age, Zechariah, the father of John the Baptist, took her into the Holy of Holies, and she was raised there for the next 9 or 10 years. And during that time, the tradition is that she was fed by the angels the manna from heaven, the same that the Israelites received in the wilderness with Moses for 40 years, and that it was the Archangel Gabriel who came and brought this to her. And that so this their relationship is one of friendship, and of course and also of course his reverence and awe of her, which shows up in our hymnography. In the Activists to the Mother of God during week 3 of the Octoikos. We sing that troparion about Gabriel coming to her, and when he's coming to announce to her that she is to be the Mother of God, and he said, what shall I call you? What is the what which is like an indication of like what can I call you who are gonna like bear the uncreated God that I even I can't look on, right? And that nevertheless, but as commanded I cry unto thee.
I think that's a really one of the things, the respect and awe and veneration that the angels demonstrate for obviously the Theotokos, but the other saints. They never come as overlords or masters. They come in humility and in respect for the fact that these human beings, made a little lower than the angels, are the manifestation of the incarnation. And I think that that's a really significant thing. And if we look throughout the hymnography and in the history of the church, that love and presence and joy that the angels have in the presence of the saints is very significant. And of course, there's in the Muslim, I'm not going to say tradition, but in their way of thinking, I think they may be onto something. They say that one of the reasons that their angels fell is because they refused to look upon man, Adam, in their case. Adam is anything but mud, and I think that mentality, even though it's from a heretical source, does represent the mentality of the demons. They feel themselves superior and powerful because they utterly lack humility. And I think that's the way we're nothing, we're dust and ashes. So that when we see the example of the angels, who, again, like you said, they stand in the presence of God in ways that we can't really comprehend in this life, that's an indicator of that we should be humble with what we've been given. We've been given an honor and power greater than the angels. And when they have it, they demonstrate it with the humility and love of Christ.
There's a story from the Synaxarion. It actually might even be in the St. Nikolai Velimirovich's prologue or I know it's one of those things that I end up reading every year. I can't ever remember when these things are, but he tells this story
Welcome to my world.
right. He tells this story though about like this priest who made considerable errors in the liturgy from time to time, but he was an incredibly holy man, and like he saw angels there with him in the altar like all the time when he served liturgy. And one day the bishop comes, and the bishop sort of chews him out for all the like mistakes he made in the liturgy. And so after the bishop leaves, he turns to the angel standing there next to him and says, "Why didn't you tell me I was doing this wrong?" And the angel said, "Father, you're a priest. It's not my place to correct you."
Wow. Wow. For those of us who are priests, it just makes us realize, oh my God, what the responsibility we're given. And they say, of course, the angels they're not able to celebrate the Eucharist. Only man can do that. Although we do have cases of angels communing. I think I'm saying Onufrius, I believe. He was communed in the desert by an angel. But then the assumption is that the angel brought the communion from some other source.
Well, of course, that's why they're on the deacon doors behind you. They can act as deacons, kind of.
Right, they're deacons. They're basically deacons, and they even say that the garments of the deacon represent the angels, particularly when their Orions are crossed. That represents the wings of the angels. So on earth they have their Orion out, so they can act. So very, very, very interesting.
There's another Eucharistic miracle involving angels from my island, Saint Sava of Galimnos. He saw one time, I don't remember the back context of this, but he saw one time an angel cutting up the infant body of Christ over the chalice and placing him into the Eucharist. I like when I think he was like a younger priest or something like that, and that was a miracle involving him that's also kind of overlaps with the two.
Yeah, there's a lot of like interesting folk miracles that, if you're not raised in that circumstance, you're like your eyes raise a little bit, but it makes sense. And of course, whenever human beings have noetic visions, they're always symbolic. And I don't, of course, anyone knows me, I don't mean symbolic to mean less than real. I mean it to mean more than real. But our limited rational capacity, when we put things into words, even though we may noetically perceive something, we have to describe it in human terms.
Right. And going back to Michael quickly before we get to Raphael, I wanted to ask about his role as the protector of God's people. So did this role shift after the incarnation and the resurrection from the people of Judah um and the Jewish people onto the Christians, like, or is it both, or like what's I guess the
When
It
we
did
talk
not
about
shift.
that,
It did not shift. Well,
well,
but the Christians became, we are the continuation of the Israel of God. So Saint
right.
Michael protects the Israel of God. Those Jews that rejected the coming of the Messiah, they lost all their prerogatives and their special blessing. And so it continues unbroken. And of course, when we say the Jews, we literally mean the Jews who, of the group that were there were groups that accepted and there were groups that rejected Christ. So he continued to protect those Jews who protected Christ. And then, of course, the Gentiles are added later. Father, I'd be interested in your comments on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's, and this is not like, some opinion. This is in scripturally in the Bible. I mean, St. John the theologian says that, they are those who say they are Jews but are not. You know,
Right.
um, they, as you said, they forfeited the benefits and prerogatives of the covenant. And so the Israel of God is the same. It's just that, those people removed themselves from it and other people were grafted in.
Right.
You know.
Israel, you can't go to Israel on a plane or a train or a boat or on a horse. The only way to enter into Israel is by baptism.
Yep. The only way to enter into it is entering into the covenant. And in the Old Testament, that covenant was made given to Abraham through circumcision. And in the new covenant, it is entered into through, baptizing and putting on Christ.
And it is really important. It may not really directly touch on angels, except what Yanni said. But this notion, there's a lot amongst the Protestants, particularly. They have this notion that the state of Israel and the people associated with like modern Judaism are really the Israel, and that somehow we're like a second, inferior group. And I actually, one of my spiritual children, he when the invasion of Gaza occurred, he went and asked his pastor. He's like, "Aren't we the Israel of God?" And the pastor said, "No, no, no, we're not that. They are." So then he said, "What are we then?" It's like, I mean, that's the notion. So there's an absolute unbroken continuity, as Father indicated, from Abraham to us. The incarnation is the fulfillment of the promise of Abraham. We are the people of Abraham. We are the people of Isaac, Jacob. Moses is our prophet, and they are not. They have rejected what God has sent to them.
all truth belongs to us, as I've heard many times before. I think that's the good kind
Because
of
we worship the
culmination.
truth. We worship the hypostatic truth. It's not us, but if you have a math competition and you ask 2 plus 2 and everyone comes with numbers 7, 9, 12, 18, and we come up with 4, it's not because we're so wise. It's because we're humble enough to accept the truth as presented to us by God, and particularly through his holy angels.
Amen to that. And going on to maybe the lesser known ones, Raphael, who appears in Tobit, what's his deal?
Of course, his name means the healing of God. He's often considered to be the cure of human infirmities, the one through whom God, manifests healings to his people. That's why in his icons he's always holding like a medicine chest with various medicines, or sometimes jars of holy myrrh. Um, and he's also carrying the fish with which
Does
he
he ever
cures
have a
the blindness.
spoon?
I'm
Does he
sorry?
ever does he ever have a spoon? Have you ever seen him with
Uh,
a spoon?
well, yeah, it's sort of like Saint Pantaleimon. He's
Right,
depicted holding like the spoon with like the medicine chest. Same,
right,
same.
right.
I think Saint. Well, I would say Saint Pantaleimon's icon is probably patterned off of
Yeah, That's what I was
Raphael.
wondering because I've
Yeah.
I've been down here with a new Saint Pantaleon. I didn't choose the name, but I'm very interested in the notion of that box and the spoon. I think this is really interesting because of course we administer communion by spoon as
Well,
well.
it's because it's the medicine of immortality.
The true medicine, absolutely. So continue, Father. I'm sorry.
Oh, so you're good. No, I think it's a good point. Like he is sort of looked at as the instrument through which God, manifests like this desire to heal what is broken, to cure what is ill, what is insufficient. And so yeah, the notion, like Father says, of bringing up that the even the spoon, the sort of medicine spoon as the spoon of communion. There's all kinds of symbolic parallel there to what is being communicated to us by the church, the mysteries of the church that heal humanity like perfectly. And so yes, I think Saint Raphael is the great example of that. The other thing that he often has in his icon though is like the silver fish that he took the gland out of and used to heal the eyes of the elder Tobias. So yeah, it's that's his role. He's there to he sort of is like the manifestation of God's healing energy.
That makes sense. And what is this story that happens in Tobit with Raphael and the demon Asmodeus, I think, right?
So yeah, in Tobit, he collects again from this fish. He collects like the bladder of the fish or whatever, and they burn this with like incense in the room where the woman whose name I know is right now escaping me. The intended for Tobias or for is there, who's possessed by this very powerful demon. I think the only demon that we get named in the Bible actually, Asmodeus. Um,
Well, are we considering Belial?
Well,
Just
I mean, is that
or is
not? I mean,
he
maybe that's one of those that like I'm never sure. Is that like another name for Satan? Is that like Um, but yeah, I
Beelzebub,
mean, like
stuff like
we're
that, yeah.
explicitly told this guy is like one of the chief demons of hell. The text is very clear about it. So, but yeah, so they burn this and he flees. Like the demon comes out of the woman and flees, and it says that he goes into the deserts of Egypt, which is
they apparently demons hate particular smells. The fathers talk about that,
yeah,
which
it's
they hang around bad places, but they do hate particular smells. Yeah, Asmodeus, of course, is aside from Satan and Belial or Beelzebub, whoever those, whether they all refer to Satan. That in Western mythology or Western occult thinking, he's certainly the most prominent of all of them.
yeah.
Hmm. And to probably one that's even lesser known than all three of those, Uriel, who only appears in Second Esdras, if I'm not mistaken, or is there more that we have to
Well, it
him in?
depends on which tradition, which text tradition, how that in the book gets numbered. But yeah, he appears in one of the Ezra books. And he's sort of his name means the enlightenment of God, the light of God, the fire of God. And he is sent to the prophet Ezra in that book because Ezra is, they've rebuilt the temple. They're trying to, re-catechize kind of the Jews that have come back from Babylon back into, the covenant. And he's very concerned about what's going to happen to his people in the future, because of course he knows about the coming of the Messiah. He knows all these things, but he's concerned about his people, and he's Ezra goes sort of very particularly into prayer and fasting. And he is given this vision where the archangel Uriel comes to him and communicates to him these images that have come from God, and then to explain them to him. And of course, among those things, one of the most prominent that's in that particular book of Ezra is that he takes him to a mountain, the Mountain of Olives, and he sees a gloriously crowned young man distributing crowns to others wearing white. And Ezra asks Uriel, "Who is this man?" And he says, "Do you not know this is the Son of God? And his name is Jesus, and he is distributing the crowns to those who on earth have confessed him even to death."
Oh.
Yeah. And he's like
You know,
name drops, the Lord right there to Ezra, and
back when I
shows him. I'm sorry, Father, what?
back when I was a Protestant, which is even harder for me to imagine, people would say that there was no real over the top references to the incarnation in Scripture. And the more you look at it, what were the Pharisees thinking? There is so much. The Old Testament is saturated. Its sole purpose is to talk about the coming of the Son of God, the Messiah. What were they thinking? The idea that it was like this was like a something that they should have been, that caught by surprise. It's so obvious once you and that particular section there, which I haven't read in a long time. That's amazing. It's clearly Christ. How are they masters of Israel and knew not these things?
Well, it's talking about that, Father, since we just came off of, Holy Week and Pascha. It for me, it's reading the crucifixion narratives on Thursday night, where the said that what it says that the scribes and the Pharisees are mocking Jesus saying at the foot of the cross is word for word what the unrighteous say to the righteous man in the book of wisdom. And it's like they said these things out loud, these things that they heard read, that they probably read themselves out loud in synagogue. And it didn't connect to them that we're repeating these horrible words,
Or it did connect to them. That's the
Maybe they
more
did know.
that they were just unbelievers, satanic unbelievers who were put there, and as many people, they just wanted to preserve their power.
The notion,
And
but the notion that they just didn't know what was happening
they must
is,
have
I
known.
think, crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. What they did. I was talking again to a friend, and he was like, "Well, the Romans killed Jesus." It's like, yeah, they carried out the dirty work, but it was the responsibility of the leaders of then Israel. That's why they lost their position, is because they had one job. Israel had one job. It was to prepare the world for the coming of the Messiah, and they messed it up. And so the notion is like, well, they were sort of right. No, they were completely wrong.
Well, of
Or
course, this
go
is a
ahead.
warning to us too, because like, what did they do?
Oh, yes,
What
indeed.
what did they do? They took what was like their vocation, which was to bring the nations to the light of the one, uncreated God, and they turned it into our race is special.
Oh, that sounds very familiar.
Yeah, which,
Patriarch,
that's like
there's patriarchs who say the same thing. Maybe
I-
all patriarchs say that. It's sad to say, but that's of no relevance whatsoever. We're not special. We can lose everything. We are the bearers of the truth, and once we start, just and I say the justification. Well, you got to get along. You got to deal with people. You have to. No, you don't. You don't. The temptation, particularly for us clerics, is to be nice. Well, you can be civil and you can be polite, but you have to say the truth. Like, for example, I mean, I know has nothing to do with the subject, but I'm quite grossed out, quite honestly, about all these letters that various high-ranking Orthodox officials sending, congratulating the new Pope of Rome. How can we do that? How can we congratulate somebody? It's like saying, "Oh, let's greet the new Führer." He is the source, the principal source of error, and that whole notion there. And it's like they have, Father Damien, who was my abbot many years ago, when they were leaving the Episcopal Church, and they were arguing with their Episcopal Bishop of Alabama. I don't remember his name, and Father Damien was trying to be civil, and the other founder of our monastery in Risaka, Father Michael, Hieromonk Michael, who was less civil. The bishop yelled at him. He says, "I have apostolic succession." He says, "I know you do," directly from Judas Iscariot. So, so I think we have to, those of us who are clerics, those of us who are in positions of the church, we can never forget what our job is. We can't fall into that Pharisaical notion. Our job is just to get along. I mean, we have to deal with reality. We have to pay bills and do all these kinds of things. But when it starts compromising what we're here for, then what are we? We're
well,
wasting time.
to sort of maybe to circle this back in, if we can, to the Archangel Uriel and to his revelation to Ezra, is
Thank you,
that
Father.
one of the things that Ezra is shown is the terrible things that are going to happen to the Jews because they reject their God all the way to the end of time. And it kind of breaks the prophet Ezra. He has a moment where he like doubts God and like starts accusing God, like, well, how can you love your people? How can you love us if you're going to let all these things happen to us? And the Archangel Uriel comes back to him and says, do you think that you love God more, or do you love your people more than God loves your people? God is not doing this to them. They do this to themselves because they reject him. They won't accept him.
And
And so it's like, you know, there it is.
here is the connection between man and angels and God. God loves us. He loves his creation, and he loves the divine element he has implanted in both men and angels, which is both glorious and terrifying. He has given us free will. And I've talked with people, well, why did he give us the ability to reject him? Because if he didn't give us that ability, then it's not free. So exactly what happened to the people of Israel, what happens to heretics, what happens to schismatics, what happens to the fallen angels is by their own choice.
Yep.
Amen to that. I'm with you.
And again, it's a warning for us. We're going to be saved or damned by our own choice.
That's true. That's very true. And
That's scary.
just a bit, huh? And I gotta remember what. So after Uriel, then it would be Salathiel, right?
Salathiel. Yeah. Yeah. So Salathiel is his name means the prayer of God, or the desire to pray. And that's his role, is that he appears very briefly also in that same book of Ezra that Uriel appears in, but by tradition he also appears in the Apocalypse, the Revelation of Saint John. He's the angel that's presenting the prayers of the saints as incense before the altar of God in heaven. And there's a tradition of actually asking and praying to him to give us, noetic prayer, to help us learn to pray, to help our, to give us the desire to pray, right? Because that's, he rules over that. He's the one who sort of brings the prayers of the saints up to God, and that his role is particularly that he's sort of like the perfect example of always in prayer. And if you notice in his iconography, sometimes he's holding the censer just like he is depicted in the Revelation, but he's always in a posture of being prayerful and downcast and his eyes down, which is like the classic Hesychast posture.
What's your
he's
source for this, Father? I'm not familiar with some of this stuff. Where did you just picked up in various sources or a
for
particular?
Salathiel in particular. So there's well, this is in that same book of Ezra. He has this role, and then Saint Victorinus of Patau. That's a pretty obscure saint for you.
I've heard it. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know who he is.
He has a really ancient commentary on the Apocalypse, and he talks about he's the one that identifies Salathiel with that angel that's offering the prayers
Is that in the Erdmans?
in the Erdman's commentary group.
Victorinus?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Um, and I have not read all of Saint Andrew, his the sort of gold standard commentary on the Apocalypse, but Archbishop Verkerke's gloss on it I have read, and he has it in the footnote. Although that footnote may have been written by Father Seraphim Rose, but
Verke, it said, Victor Batava told me that every single time he preached, every single time, he always ended with the apocalypse. Every single time.
Look, of
Oh,
all
cool.
the things that have, one of the that commentary, that gloss of his on the Apocalypse is maybe one of the best things that's been produced in the 20th century in Orthodoxy.
Yeah, we have some gems. We have some real
And
gems.
it's one of those things that's particularly useful to us now because we have so many people coming in who are coming from Protestant backgrounds who have ludicrous notions about that book.
Yeah,
We did agree that we're gonna do an apocalypse thing later on, right? We have to. We have to,
Well,
man.
I mean, you could just really take that thing chapter by chapter. I mean, because it's actually a chapter by chapter, verse by verse commentary, and in many ways, it's a Verki doing to Saint Andrew of Caesarea what Theophylact did to Saint John Chrysostom's sermons. It's
Right.
basically cutting it down, pulling out some of the extraneous rhetorical flushes, and giving you just like the
This
meat
is
and
what we
potatoes.
need today. I mean, there is so much, it's so much. I mean, when I came into Orthodoxy in the early 90s, there was so little available in English. And as a result of that, one, we didn't have a lot of resources to respond to, but two, the sort of level of dialogue was much less. Now, so much is out there that the Orthodox, we need to really work on developing resources so that people have access to this kind of thing, because there's just now in the past 35 years, the amount of stuff that's available in English is just unbelievable. When I was coming into Orthodoxy, Ambigua was not available, Complete Triads was not available. Things that are now, I mean,
Right.
even the Philokalia was just coming in. I mean, a text we now consider basic were not available. And I think it's really important, Father, you need to write some books, but it's really important, these kinds of things, because people don't have the time or the inclination or the skill set to go through all the source material and produce something that's usable. So, glory to
Well,
God.
and the other source, of course, for some of this information is the great Synaxarion of Dmitri of Rostov. He's got
Yeah, that's fantastic.
the feast day of the Archangels is like this huge multi-page, basically kind of a gloss of everything we know about all of them crammed into that reading. So that's a great resource for some of this information too, especially on the Seraphim, the great Archangels.
And who else? And then Jude, how do you say his name?
Jehudiel is the next one.
Jehudiel. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, Jehudi. I could
So
not pronounce his name to save my life.
yeah, so his name means the glorification of God, and it's traditionally, of course, this is straight out of Saint Dmitry of Rostov, says that he is the one who distributes the rewards for good works, for asceticism, for the labors that people undertake on behalf of Christ. That he's actually the one who's like the ceremonial official who's putting the crown on the head, for God. He distributes the reward of good works. He distributes the gifts for that people have earned through their asceticism and their prayer. So, like even I think you can extrapolate from that. Even like the gift of wonder working, the gift of healing, the gift of prophecy, or these are the things that God like gives to great ascetics. That this is like his role is to distribute those to the saints.
So each of these angels is in all likelihood overseeing a vast cohort of lesser angels that are assisting or
Yeah,
guardian
I
angels.
think that has to be the case.
Has to be the case. Because otherwise, what are these other angels just doing? Sitting around? No, they're not sitting around. They may be in heaven worshiping God, which is, just as good. But it seems like from a human perspective, it seems like we have a 7-member cabinet, headed by the prime minister, which is Michael, and they supervise the angels doing these things.
Yeah,
That's sort of
I think
how
that's the case.
how my mind has to cope with it.
And then the last one would be Barakiel, right?
Well, there's two more. So
Two more.
Barakiel, he's always depicted with roses, like roses on his like vesture, and his name means the blessing of God. So he is sort of the distributor of God's blessings. He also Saint Dimitri says that he is instrumental in the entreating of mercy for the people of God. He is like basically the voice of, have mercy on, these poor stupid humans, have mercy
His
on your
department
creation. I'm sorry?
his department seems to overlap with Jugideo a little bit.
It does. There's a good bit of overlap
They don't
between I think
fight
the
because they're
last
angels.
three. Yeah.
Right.
The final three, there's just kind of it's a little bit blurry because they're not really, we don't have as much scriptural reference for them. They're known, these guys are known particularly just through tradition, except for the last one, which is Jeremiel, who's also in one of the Ezra books. Um, and he always is holding the balance scales in his iconography. And so he's traditionally associated with um, the raising up of the saints to God because of just judgment. The ones who have, people who have sort of made it through the toll houses. He's showing, that they've, this is the balance of these people, and they are worthy to enter into paradise.
And then who would
Sounds like God's got it all figured out.
Yeah. I wish I was a fraction as organized as the kingdom of heaven is, but maybe one day. So who would the last one be then?
That was Jeremiel. That's the one that with the balance
Jeremiel.
scales.
Okay.
So, and of course, there's not as much to say about the last three because, like I said, they're sort of Barachiel in particular is only sort of attested to through like the sort of like the oral tradition of the church that's recorded in some of the Synaxarian readings. But the last three, we don't interact with them pretty too directly. I think ever. The ones that
Or
we
do
have.
we?
Maybe we do, we just don't know it,
Right.
But as far as like the sort of the big flashy, appearances of the archangels, that's Michael, Gabriel, and in that one instance, Raphael.
Right. And considering, go ahead.
No,
I'm sorry.
Continue. Sorry.
I was gonna say there's something really cool about like there's 8 of them, and me and you have talked about before, like God's love of superimposition with numericals, and how the number of God is 7, but then there's 8 of them, and then like the 8-point star is like a reoccurring ancient Christian symbol, which we'll be using for Orthochat branding reasons in the near future. So, but yeah,
Here's a good
something
idea.
like
A
that.
good
Yeah.
idea for a novel would be In Search of the Ninth Angel. There's got to be a ninth one out there.
Well,
He's
he's kind of under our feet as far as we know, right? Or
I'm very Dionysian. I believe it's all about 9. Got to have 9.
gotta have 9.
Then each one of them, runs a particular. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. I mean, this is the stuff about the angels is like, and this is of course the reason why we decided to do this is that it's important for us to know about what our tradition says about this stuff, and more importantly, what our tradition doesn't say about the angelic
no
hierarchies.
kidding.
Because there's so much nonsense out there now. There's so much nonsense. People like repeating stuff from Protestant academics and people repeating things from I mean, God forbid, comparing the Orthodox tradition to these and implying in some way that it's derivative of like some of these other Semitic and partially Semitic peoples of the Near East, Babylonians, Chaldeans,
Isn't there a prominent Orthodox priest out there who was saying that kind of thing that
Well,
people ask
I
me
would
about?
hate to believe, Father, that any Orthodox priest would be so cavalier with our tradition as to imply that it was derived from, pagans in Babylon after, during the captivity. But if such a person exists, God help them and enlighten them.
But isn't there? Are we?
You guys are very funny. You know that you two are very.
No, there's that guy. He's written all that books. I get questions about him all the time. And doesn't he say things like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean,
Regrettably, yeah.
Man.
I mean, yeah, this is, I mean, and it's just an absurdity. I mean, like again, what
It's
we
a
know about
manifestation. It means you don't believe.
it
That's
does.
what
It means you don't believe the tradition, which means you don't believe in the God of the tradition.
Right. You don't believe in tradition. Everything prior to the time that you write your own book is just foolish people who don't know anything. It has a sort of intrinsic anti-traditional and an intrinsic evolutionist mentality that we are they who know, and that our ancestors in the church were just moronic Bronze Age idiots. And I think
Everyone thinks like that nowadays somehow, and I'm just
no, that's the real dividing line. That's the big dividing line. Do you believe the fathers are your fathers? They're kings of the church, or do you believe it's like, oh, they were just they didn't know what they're doing? That's satanic. How can that not be just satanic? What are we doing here? I mean, me and Father are dressed in robes from 1,000 years ago. We do that because we respect the fathers. And if it's just it doesn't matter. We could, dress like Roman Catholics.
I'm with you. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we got through every one of the archangels. Well, the Archangelos anyway, the chiefest among them. And I mean, is there anything else that you guys can think of concerning them, or?
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah. Father knows more than I do. I learned some things today, particularly about those last couple. I mean, I knew the names. I don't think the last one, Father. I don't think I remember. I don't think I remember hearing about that until today. So, if someone is wise
He's got
and
one. He
deep
gets
in the
one
tradition.
mention. He gets one mention in what in the Septuagint is the fourth book of Ezra. One
Yeah,
little,
I love Ezra. Ezra's awesome.
yeah.
There's some fun stuff in there too. There's some
Oh
fun.
yeah, no, that was a man who saw some stuff and and believed it. And that's as a matter of fact, we're coming off Pascha tide and talking about Ezra. On Pascha, I had sort of an impromptu lecture about Prophet Ezra, because the the prototype for Great Lent and for Bright Week is in Ezra.
Right.
When the Jews came back to the Holy Land, back to Jerusalem, and they were rebuilding the temple, and Ezra brings out the law and reads them the law. They all have to come. All of the whole assembly has to come stand there while he reads them the law. And as he's reading this to them, it says that they fell on their faces weeping because they knew that they had not been keeping this, nor had their fathers, and that they had broken their covenant with God. And so they're all like weeping and like falling down on their faces in front of Ezra, and he tells them to get up off the ground and to go wash themselves and to go feast for a week and with their neighbors and rejoice that God has had mercy on them despite their sins.
Hmm.
And if that's what Bright Week is, man. That's what Bright Week is.
And it's a tradition in monasteries that have the capacity during the first week of Lent, Clean Week. You read in church all four Gospels, and that's sort of the feeling you get. It's like because every time you read it, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot that. Oh yeah. So I think that's an important notion of having it presented to us because we're responsible for it.
Right.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Everyone, I think that is everything we could basically cover about them. In the docket, we have a whole bunch more stuff to talk about. We might mix and meld and do stuff of that nature. But guys, I think we're good. I am so stupid. I forgot to start us off with a prayer. Just because it's been a while since I've done this and my mind is everywhere. But at least we could end off with one. Would either one of you wanna do that for us?
Brother Jay.
Gospel tide. So Christ is from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs bestowing life.
Alithos anestio Kyrios. Guys, thank you
God
so
bless
much.
everybody.
Thank you so much for everything.
And come back from Alaska. I mean, it seems like you're blending into the Aurora Borealis. I don't know.
Oh, don't worry, it'll swallow me up eventually. I probably deserve
And Father,
it.
it seems like some of the books on the side there, they seem like there's some energy there. So you got to be. It's like an invasion of energy. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe Uriel, maybe what was it? What's the last one?
Jeremiel.
Jeremiah.
We should name somebody Jeremiah.
Actually, wait, is that where the name Jeremiah derived from, you think? No way.
Oh, the root is the same. It's the death
yeah.
about lamentation or prayer, intercession, that kind of stuff.
That might be
All right.
All right.
My computer's about to run out of power.
All right, well that's perfect. All right, Yerunda, we will talk soon. I'm just gonna do announcements, so don't worry about it. Christos Anesti, I'll call you in a little bit, I'm sure, about some kind of emergency involving myself.
Yes.
And for everybody else, what is going on in the world of the Orthochat? Father Justinian's documentary just released of his parish. Please check that out. It's like 2 hours long. We interviewed his parishioners and we interviewed We interviewed him, and we did a big documentary of the church and the services, and we got one of his sermons in with a guest appearance from Yeronda Maximus at the very tail end of it, talking about.
I wasn't there. Is when you interviewed me.
Yeah. When I interviewed you, yeah, you're at the very end. You were supposed to be there, and I was so upset I didn't get to see you. I wanted to throw up.
I'm never where I'm supposed to be.
That's okay. Join the club. And speaking of Yeronda Maximus, please support the St. Maximos Society, which you can find the link for down below. I'm working with them in a couple ways, and they do great work, and I believe in their mission, and they're doing fantastic stuff over there. You can also.
It feels like we've broken through in these last few videos there on the St. Maximus Society. We have one that's like 6,000 views, which is, not great. It's not bad.
That's better than anything I've ever done. You guys are killing it. And if you want to support Father Justinian's parish and the stuff that they're doing, there will be a link down below for that as well. Episode, I'd already talked about temple tours. Episode 1 of the Orthochat Passport will be out soon. It's basically done. I just have to slot it into YouTube, where we analyze Saint Sava, the new of Galimnos' monastery, talking about his life and the monastery building. Our clothing brand Stratiatis will release soon. We have the big projects I can't even talk about yet. The Orthochat Gaming is something that's coming out, where we will be playing video games from an Orthodox Christian development company that is kind of that's about the lives of the saints, and you can kind of explore the lives of Igos Theodoros Stratiatis and what is it? Yeah, I know we're doing that one first. I just have to wait for that to come out. But yeah, that's the Orthochat Live. Yeah.
What will they think of next?
Oh yeah, no. It's like an RPG where you are walking through. It's not violent. It's like you're helping bees get unstuck from like a water fountain and stuff like that. It's very cute. And you walk through and you're basically Saint Theodoros Stratiatis, or you're Saint Ephraim of Nia Macaria. I think they did another one. And we're gonna be going. Yeah, it's Saint Ignatius Productions. We're gonna leave them below. We do our Twitter stuff all the time. We're gonna continue our readings of the life of Saint Paisios and all the other reading stuff we do. Eventually, what else is going on? You know what? I put a lot of the big stuff inside of the intro, so it's not a big deal. But if you follow us on Twitter, if you follow us on Instagram, that's in our link tree in the bio of our YouTube. You can follow all of the stuff that's going on with us. We're revamping and reconstructing and doing announcements all the time about all the stuff that we're attempting to do all at once in the most unhealthy and unorganizational way possible, which is the way you get things done.
That is the tradition.
Isn't it the tradition? Orthodox, the Orthodox tradition of being late to everything and asking forgiveness for not showing up on time, which is how we roll here at the Orthochat. And besides that, brothers and sisters, Christos Anesti, may the risen Christ, his all holy angels, all the saints, and his all holy mother be with you all the days of your lives, and we will talk to you all later.
Το κλαίος και θείον εφορών και το παλαιοσίον το ισοστασίον εφημίσομεν πιστή Σαββατών οσίων ότι δε δόξαστε λαμπρός ως θεράπων του Χριστού θαυμάτων τη ενεργία και διανέμει τη σπάση παρά Θεού χάριν και ελεημοσύνη.